Today, the Trump administration is holding a public hearing in Washington, D.C. to roll back the National Environmental Policies Act, NEPA. That's one of the most fundamental core of our environmental protections. The administration's proposal is misguided. What NEPA is designed to do is make sure that when the federal government either funds or issues a permit for a project like a highway or a pipeline, that there's a full and fair consideration of alternatives that can have less environmental impacts, that they're rigorously explored, and that the public really engages and participates. Weakening NEPA is a misguided idea. What the Trump administration is doing is wrong. And indeed, what they're doing here is limiting public participation. They're only holding two hearings, one in Denver, one in Washington, D.C. The Environmental Law and Policy Center brought together a coalition of 55 Midwest and Great Lakes groups. The Great Lakes, 21% of the world's freshwater supply. It's where we live, where we work, and where we play. We asked the Trump administration, hold a public hearing here in the Midwest, here in the Great Lakes. Don't just fly over the Midwest, Washington, D.C. and Denver. Hear what people have to say here. So far, they've declined to do it. So we're going to try to bring it to them. Here's what we would say if there were a public hearing. We'd say the Great Lakes is a global gem. Here in the Midwest is where we live, where we work, where we play. It's where we get our safe drinking water supply from. We care about not harming fisheries. It's where we enjoy outdoor recreation. It provides water for our economy and for industries here. When the Trump administration goes to roll back NEPA, which requires a full and fair consideration of alternatives, they're putting the Midwest and the Great Lakes at risk. Here are three specific things they're doing. Here's why it's wrong. First, we know that the scientists are telling us that there's an impact harmful of climate change on the Great Lakes. The Environmental Law and Policy Center worked with 18 top scientists from Midwest and Canadian universities to deliver a state of the science report and assess the impact of climate change on the Great Lakes. We're all seeing the high water levels and the waves. Climate impacts matter. The Trump administration's rollback of NEPA that they're proposing would do away with really seriously looking at the climate change impacts. That's wrong. Secondly, the very core of NEPA is to look at alternatives. In other words, before the decision is made to go forward with a highway or a pipeline, do a full and fair consideration of all reasonable alternatives, rigorously explore and objectively evaluate those alternatives so the decision makers can understand, are there better alternatives that can have less environmental impact? That's what's happened, for example, when there have been environmental impact statements on a proposed highway in the Chicago metropolitan area. A court in that case reversed the environmental impact statement for not having given sufficient consideration alternatives. The same's happened with a proposed dam on Sugar Creek in southern Illinois when there are better ways of the municipality getting water supply. A third set of issue is the public. One of the core values of NEPA is to engage the public, full public participation, because the public has good ideas that should be heard at the beginning before a final decision is made. The Trump administration's proposal would cut back and limit public participation. So in short, this is a misguided rule and rollback from the Trump administration that unfairly and in a harmful way limits the National Environmental Policies Act, one of the core and fundamental environmental protections. The Trump administration should be hearing from the public here in the Midwest and around the Great Lakes. They've declined to do so. We're taking our message to them, and hopefully you'll join us in doing that. Thank you.